All right, friends. Thank you and welcome once again to my SQL tutorial. My name is Chibuike Mukafo and I'm your guide in this tutorial. Previously, we've learned about how we can work with other things like creating of tables, creating a database rather in our previous tutorial. So in this tutorial, we'll be talking about working with table. So let's see the next slide, what we'll be discussing about. Now, in this tutorial, we will be discussing about creating table, primary key constraint and foreign key constraint. So, but before we dive into this, we will talk about creating table first. Then we will now come to talk about the primary key constraint and the foreign key constraint. So let's dive right into SQL Server Management Studio. Remember in the previous lesson, I told you that everything we do in SQL Server Management Studio can be done graphically and also can be done with a query. So remember in our previous tutorial, we created a database called test6. Now we want to create a table. In order for us to create a table, you click on this database, the plus sign behind the database icon, and then we'll drop down this table to see the tables. As you can see, all the tables we have there are the system tables that were created by SQL Server. So we'll look at the slide and see the tables we'll be working with. In this tutorial, we'll be creating TBL employee and department. So let's do that graphically. We are going to create this table graphically. Now, in order for us to do that, we'll right click on this table folder here and click on point to new and we'll click on new table. This window will appear and our first column there is ID. So we'll type ID. Now the data type will be int. We want our data type to be int. And we are not allowing nulls. That means the column must not be empty. And we'll make this table a primary key. We'll right click on this to make it a primary key. We'll right click on this arrow here and click on primary key. And just to go back to what we want to discuss about primary key, we see that a primary key is a column or columns that contain values that uniquely identify a row. So in order for us to uniquely identify a role or a record, we need to have a primary key. So that is why we are calling this the primary key. And we created a primary key for this. Next in the table is name, email, and department ID. So we'll do that quickly. Name, and this will be mvarka. We'll put 50 here. That is the number of character. I will not be allowing nulls. Email, mvarka. We'll put 50, and we will not allow null. The next is department ID. This will be int, and let's allow null. So we have done this in the design window. So what next? We'll right click on this tab here and click on save. So we'll now call this, what are we calling it? TBL underscore employee. So TBL underscore employee. So click on OK. The table has been created. Looking at this now, you may not see the table created, but what we need to do now, we have to right click on this folder, the table folder, and click on refresh. And now we'll see that the table has been created. If you click this to drop down, we see uh, the properties of the table. Let's click on columns. Now we'll see the columns that we have created. We'll see that the ID is having a key here. Remember, we created a primary key for this. So this ID, the ID column will be used to uniquely identify uh, each record in a table. So that is for this. Now we are going to create the next table here using the query. We are creating, this will be the department ID and also the department name. So let's do that using the query window. So we'll click on new query and I will click on, we'll type create table. We'll put the table name department, for short depth. Now, what do we want to be the properties, the columns in this table? Remember, we are creating department ID and department name. So let's create department underscore ID. The value will be int. Will not accept null. That means we'll say not null. And this will be a primary key, comma. Next is the department name. This will be n varchar 50 characters. We will not accept null as well, so we'll say not null, and this will not be a primary key. So for us to run this query now, we'll select this and click on run, execute rather. But before we execute, we are going to make sure we are selecting the right database against which we are creating this table. So we are using the correct database. I will click on execute. Now we'll see that this command completed successfully. We're not seeing the table, so we'll have to refresh again in order for us to see the newly created table. As we can see, uh, dbo underscore dbo.depth, that is the department table we just created now. So next, we are going to talk about primary key and foreign key constraint. Now, what is a foreign key constraint? A foreign key is a column or combination of columns that is used to establish a foreign, to enforce a link between the data in two databases. In order for us to understand this, let's just go to the SQL Server Management Studio. Let's input data into the SQL Server, into the table we just created. Uh, we can input data using query, but for this purpose, we just want to illustrate what a foreign key is. So I'm going to right click on this and we'll click on edit top 200 rows to input data. In the ID here, I'll put one, my name, email c.c@gmail.com, and the department ID is, I'll select one. Next, I'll put two. In the next tutorial, we'll discuss on how to make this ID an auto incremental value, whereby we don't need to input value. It will automatically generate a number for it. But for this, let's just go Mike do m.m at gmail.com. I'll put the value 2. I'll click on this column to commit. Now, what foreign key does is we're going to link this department ID to the next. Let's see. Let's do this. Edit top 200 row to this department ID of uh, the department table. So let's do this, because now, for instance, Um, let's input this. Let's see department ID 1. We'll call this IT. Department ID 2. Call this finance. Sorry. 3. We'll call this HSC. Um, so this has been committed. So we see that in relationship, when we want to relate two tables together, when you talk about database normalization, we have, if we want to know the department to which Okafor is, we'll come to this department table and say the department ID is 1, and we'll come here to say the department ID is 1 as well. So we can say Okafor belongs to the IT department. So, but you see, we have 1, 2, 3 department ID. But if we want to edit the department ID of Mike Doe to 55, we will see that the table accepts it, and this the data integrity of this database is lost because there is no department with department ID of 55. So how do we address this issue? We use a foreign key to enforce a policy that will tell the database that any department ID that is not found in this table will not be accepted in this column. So let's do this. Let's practice this. So in order for us to do this, let me take this back to 2. In order for us to do this, we'll have to come to the ID here. We want to make the foreign key, and sorry, we'll come to the TBL employee table, right click, and we'll click on design. So I'm going to come to this ID. I'll drop click on this, right click on it rather. Let's do that again. I'll right click on the department ID, and I'll click on relationship. Doing this graphically, I'll click on relationship, and in this window I'll click on add. Now when I click on add, I'll come to columns and tables and columns. I'll click on the ellipses here. Now for sure we are making the department ID the primary key table, and I'm going to make the department ID column the primary key column. The employee TBL employee table will be selected as the foreign key table, and we are selecting the department ID as the foreign key constraint. So if we click on this and click close and save the table, this will be applied to this table, but we don't want to do that. We want to add that graphic. We want to see how we can do that with the query. Let's close this. We will not save this. No, we are not saving this. So let's do that with a query, then we will see how this works. In order for us to do that with query, let's open a new query window. Let's do this. We'll see the syntax on how we can do that using query. Now, in order for us to do that, to type the query alter table, then the foreign key table, add constraint, then we'll add the constraint name. Let's do that. So I'll say alter table. The foreign key table is TBL underscore employee. Add constraint. The constraint name, I can just call this name depth underscore FK for short. Next, we're going to look for the foreign key. Then we'll type the foreign key keyword and the foreign key table column rather. So let's do that. Hope I got that correctly. Foreign key. So the foreign key column that we are working with is the department ID, which is depth underscore ID, references. We use the references keyword, the primary key table, and the primary key column. So here the primary key table is depth, and the primary key column we are working with is depth ID. So we are good to go. So with this, we will enforce the foreign key constraint on that table. So let's click on execute. Oh, so we'll get a syntax error. So let's see where this is coming from. Alter table, the table name tbl underscore employee, add constraint name, foreign key. Okay, there is no key keyword foreign key. So that has been corrected. So let's run the command again. Oh, click on execute. So this has been completed now. All right, so this has been complete. We can refresh this. Table. We can come to constraint, or rather we can come to the table we just created. Okay, so let's see this in action. Let's see if it works. Um, let's try to open this. I will type 99. You see, this cannot be committed anymore because we have already added a constraint to this now to ensure that what is in the department ID table must be in line with what we have here. Now, if you look at the error, we see that the data in row 2 is not committed. And you see the message, the update statement conflicted with the foreign key constraint. Remember this foreign key we created. So in order for us to input such value 99, we have to come to this department table and we'll type 99, and maybe we'll call this operations. So with this now, we can change this to 99 and it will be accepted. Otherwise, we could not have been able to do this. So this is the beauty of foreign key. So it enforces a database integrity so that what we have in the department ID can also be seen in department table. So um, now if you just see here, we see that foreign keys are used to enforce database integrity. It is used to prevent invalid data in the table. So we'll call this a day here. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you get notification whenever we upload a new video. Uh, just get prepared for my next tutorial. Thank you very much.